The response came faster than anyone expected. Less than 6 hours after Lyra sent her message, the sensors of the Seeker of Truths detected an approaching vessel. It was small, sleek, and built with technology that made the Valkyrie ship look primitive by comparison. The hull was black as the void itself, and it moved through space with a grace that suggested engines far beyond anything in the galactic database. Ship. Master Vorath watched the approaching vessel with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Can you identify it?" he asked. "The design matches no known species," the sensor technician replied. "But the power signatures are consistent with human technology. Very advanced human technology. Enhanced humans," Kethis said quietly. "They survived. They evolved. They are still out there." The communication system crackled to life, and a voice filled the bridge. It was a male voice, calm and confident. "Valkyrie vessel, this is Captain Cole of the Quiet Dawn. We received a transmission from your coordinates. We are here to collect our passenger." Vorath looked at Lyra, who stood near the viewing screen with her arms folded. She showed no surprise at the arrival. She had known they would come. "This is Shipmaster Vorath," he replied carefully. "We have your passenger. She is unharmed." "We are pleased to hear that. We will be docking with your vessel shortly. Please lower your shields and prepare to receive us." Vorath hesitated. Everything in his training told him to refuse. The Quiet Dawn was an unknown vessel with unknown capabilities. Allowing it to dock was a tremendous risk. But he had already made his choice when he let Lyra send her message. There was no turning back now. "Shields are down," he said. "You may dock." The Quiet Dawn attached itself to the Seeker of Truths with a gentle thud that barely registered on the ship's sensors. Minutes later, the airlock opened, and 3 figures stepped onto the Valkyrie vessel. Captain Cole was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen many years and too many battles. His eyes had the same faint golden glow as Lyra's, marking him as an enhanced human. Beside him stood a woman with white hair and dark skin, her posture straight despite her obvious age. The third figure was a younger man with broad shoulders and watchful eyes. Cole walked directly to Lyra and stopped in front of her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Cole smiled. "Commander Voss," he said. "It has been a long time." Lyra tilted her head. "You know me?" "Everyone knows you. The woman who refused to be a weapon. The soldier who chose to sleep rather than fight. Your story has been passed down through generations of enhanced humans. You are a legend." Lyra did not know how to respond to that. She had never thought of herself as a legend. She had simply made a choice, 400 years ago, because she could not bear the alternative. The white-haired woman stepped forward. "I am Elder June Parrish," she said. "I lead the community of enhanced humans who remain in this region of space. We have been hiding for centuries, watching over ordinary humanity from the shadows. We had hoped that one day the galaxy would be ready to accept us. And is it ready?" Lyra asked. Parrish looked at Vorath and the other Valkyrie watching from across the bridge. "That remains to be seen. But your awakening may be the first step. A chance to show the galaxy who we really are." Vorath cleared his throat. "If I may ask a question?" Parrish turned to face him. "Of course. Why did you hide? If enhanced humans are as powerful as you claim, why not reveal yourselves? Why not take your place among the great civilizations of the galaxy?" Parrish smiled sadly. "Because power is not the same as acceptance. We could have conquered. We could have dominated. But that would only have proven every fear the galaxy has about us. Instead, we chose to wait, to watch, to help from the shadows when we could, and to hope that someday someone would see us as people instead of threats." "The Valkyrie saw Commander Voss as a threat," Vorath admitted. We tried to capture her. We authorized lethal force against her. We made many mistakes. Yes, you did. But you also let her send her message. You lowered your shields when we arrived. Those were not the actions of someone who sees us only as enemies. Varth looked at Lyra. She could have killed us all. She chose not to. That earned her my respect. And perhaps that is the beginning of something new. Parrish said. Council Representative Sathara stepped forward. She had been silent throughout the exchange, observing and calculating. Now she spoke with the careful precision of someone who understood the weight of her words. I will be making a report to the Velthory Council, she said. They will want to know everything that happened here. They will want to know about enhanced humans, about their capabilities, about their intentions. And what will you tell them? Cole asked. Sathara paused. She thought about everything she had witnessed. The guards who had been defeated but not killed. The civilians who had been spared. The message that could have been a declaration of war, but was instead a simple call for reunion. I will tell them the truth, she said finally. That we encountered an enhanced human and misjudged her completely. That our database was wrong. That our assumptions were wrong. That we made errors that could have cost us everything. And what else? Parrish pressed. Sathara looked at Lyra. I will tell them that she showed us mercy when she had every reason to show us violence. I will tell them that awakening her may have been our greatest error, or perhaps our greatest opportunity. It depends on what we choose to do next. Lyra stepped forward. Then make the right choice. For 400 years, I dreamed of a galaxy where enhanced humans could live openly. Where we could use our gifts to help instead of destroy. Where we could be seen as partners instead of threats. That dream can still come true, but only if species like yours are willing to see us differently. Malas, the young engineer, had been standing at the edge of the bridge, watching everything unfold. Now he spoke for the first time. I saw her in the maintenance tunnels, he said. She could have killed me. Instead, she asked my name. She let me go. I do not believe she is a monster. I believe she is a person who has been treated as a monster for too long. The bridge fell silent. Everyone looked at the young engineer who had spoken out of turn. Then, slowly, other Velthory began to nod. Guards who had been defeated but spared. Scientists who had seen their assumptions shattered. Ordinary crew members who had heard stories of the crisis and wondered why none of them had died. Varth took a deep breath. Then we begin again, he said. Enhanced humans and Velthory. Not as enemies. Not as specimens and researchers. But as equals, learning about each other for the first time. Cole extended his hand. It was a human gesture, one that the Velthory did not normally use. But Varth understood its meaning. He reached out and clasped Cole's hand in his own. Welcome to the galaxy, Varth said. Both of you. Lyra walked toward the airlock, ready to board the quiet dawn and begin the next chapter of her life. But before she left, she stopped and turned to face Kethis. You wanted to study me, she said. To learn about enhanced humans and our history. Kethis nodded nervously. I apologize for the way I treated you. I was arrogant. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But curiosity itself is not a sin. It only becomes one when it lacks respect. She paused. If you truly want to learn about us, come and visit. Ask questions. Listen to our stories. That is how understanding begins. Kethis blinked in surprise. You would allow that? I would encourage it. The galaxy has been afraid of enhanced humans for too long. It is time for that to change, and change begins with knowledge. Lyra turned and walked through the airlock. Cole and Parrish followed, along with the younger man who had never spoken. The door closed behind them, and moments later, The quiet dawn detached from the seeker of truths and slipped away into the darkness of space. Vorth watched it go. Beside him, Sathara began composing her report to the council. Kethis stood at the viewing screen, already planning his next research expedition. And somewhere in the vast emptiness between the stars, Lyra Voss looked out at the galaxy. She had slept through and smiled. The greatest error had become the greatest opportunity, and the future was finally beginning. The bridge of the Seeker of Truths was the most heavily guarded location on the ship. 12 guards stood at attention around the perimeter, their weapons drawn and ready. Shipmaster Vorth sat in his command chair, watching the security feeds with growing anxiety. Council Representative Sathara stood beside him, her patience wearing thin. "It has been 4 hours," she said. "How has she evaded every patrol? How has she defeated every team we send against her?" "She is enhanced," Vorth replied bitterly. "Whatever that means. Whatever the humans did to themselves during their wars, it clearly worked. The Council will not be pleased with this report. The Council can wait until this crisis is resolved. Right now, my priority is protecting this ship and its crew." The door to the bridge slid open, and Senior Researcher Kethis entered. He looked tired and shaken, nothing like the confident scientist who had ordered the human revived just hours ago. The experience had humbled him in ways he had never expected. "Shipmaster," he said, "I have been studying the data we collected from the human's vessel. I believe I understand what she is." Vorth turned to face him. "Then explain it quickly." During the Enhancement Wars, humans experimented on themselves. They modified their DNA, upgraded their neural pathways, reinforced their skeletal structure. They created soldiers who were faster, stronger, and smarter than any natural human. But the program had unintended consequences. Some of the enhanced humans became unstable. Others became too powerful to control. The war that followed nearly destroyed their species. None of this tells me how to stop her. That is because you cannot stop her. Not with force. The enhanced humans were designed to be the ultimate warriors. They can see in the dark. They can hear heartbeats through walls. They can process information faster than any computer. And they can kill with their bare hands in ways that would make your most skilled fighters look like children. Sethra's eyes narrowed. Then why are we still alive? If she is as dangerous as you say, why has she not killed everyone on this ship? Kethis paused. This was the question that had been bothering him since the crisis began. The human had defeated every guard she encountered, but none of them were dead. She had passed through engineering, where Melos had seen her, and she had let him go. She had moved through corridors filled with civilians, and none of them had been harmed. "I do not know," he admitted. "Perhaps she is waiting for the right moment. Perhaps she is planning something larger. Or perhaps our database was wrong about more than just her physical abilities." Before Vorth could respond, the lights on the bridge flickered. The security feeds went dark. The automated system stuttered and fell silent. "What is happening?" Sathara demanded. "Someone is accessing the ship's primary systems," a technician called out. "They are bypassing our security protocols. They are heading for the communication array." Vorth rose from his chair. "She is here." The main door to the bridge slid open, and Lyra Voss stepped through. She moved with the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. The guards raised their weapons, but she made no move to attack. She simply walked to the center of the bridge and stopped, her golden eyes scanning the room. "Shipmaster Vorth," she said, "I am not here to hurt you." Vorth's hand hovered over his sidearm. "You have already hurt my crew. You have disrupted my ship. And now you invade my bridge. Your crew is alive. Every guard I encountered is alive. I could have killed them all, but I did not. That should tell you something about my intentions." Sathara stepped forward. What do you want? I want to send a message. Then I want to leave. That is all. A message to whom? To my people. To the enhanced humans who survived the war and scattered across the galaxy. I want them to know that I am alive. I want them to know where I am. Vorath shook his head. I cannot allow that. If enhanced humans still exist, the Council must be informed before any contact is made. The security implications are too great. Lyra looked at him with something that might have been pity. You are afraid of us, she said. All of you. You found my ship, and instead of trying to communicate, you brought me aboard for study. You treated me like a specimen, like an object. And when I refused to be controlled, you tried to kill me. You are dangerous. Yes, I am dangerous. But dangerous is not the same as evil. Your own species has weapons that could destroy entire planets. Does that make you evil? Vorath had no answer. Lyra turned to face the communication array. 400 years ago, I made a choice. I refused to be a weapon for the people who created me. I refused to fight in their wars. I chose to sleep instead, hoping that when I woke up, the galaxy would have changed. She paused, and for a moment, the mask of calm she had been wearing slipped. Beneath it was something old and tired and sad. But nothing has changed. You still see enhanced humans as threats. You still respond to the unknown with fear. You still choose violence before understanding. What would you have us do? Kethis asked quietly. You disabled our guards. You invaded our ship. How are we supposed to trust you? Lyra turned to look at him. I could have killed everyone on this ship. Every guard. Every scientist. Every civilian. I could have done it in minutes, and none of you could have stopped me. But I did not. I chose mercy, even when you chose hostility. That is how you are supposed to trust me. The bridge was silent. Vorath's hand slowly moved away from his weapon. He looked at Lyra with new eyes, seeing not a monster but something far more complicated. Something he did not fully understand. You want to send a message, he said slowly. And then you want to leave. Yes, and if I let you do this, what happens next? That depends on you. You can report this incident to your council and tell them that enhanced humans are dangerous creatures that should be hunted and destroyed. Or you can tell them the truth. That you met an enhanced human and she showed you mercy. That you provoked her and she chose peace. That your greatest error was not awakening me, but failing to see me as a person. Vorath looked at Sathara. The council representative's face was unreadable. Shipmaster, Kethis said softly. She could have killed me when she first woke up. She did not. Perhaps we should listen to what she is saying. The moment stretched. The fate of two species hung in the balance dot. Then Vorath stepped aside. Send your message, he said. Then leave my ship. Lyra nodded once. She walked to the communication array and began entering coordinates that she had memorized centuries ago. Her fingers moved across the alien controls with surprising ease, adapting to the unfamiliar technology within seconds. The message was simple. A set of coordinates, a recognition code, and 3 words that had served as a rallying cry for enhanced humans since the beginning of the war. We are here. The transmission went out into the darkness of space, traveling at the speed of light toward destinations unknown. Lyra watched it go, and for the first time since she had awakened, she allowed herself to hope. Somewhere out there, her people were waiting, and they would answer. The hunt for Lyra Voss consumed the entire ship. Every corridor was patrolled. Every room was searched. Security teams moved through the vessel in coordinated sweeps, their weapons charged and ready. Shipmaster Vorath watched the operation from the bridge, his face dark with frustration. How is this possible? He demanded. One human. One primitive creature from a dead civilization. And we cannot find her? She's not what we expected, Security Chief Drell replied. His voice was hoarse from the blow Lyra had dealt him, and his pride was wounded far worse than his throat. The database was wrong. Enhanced humans are not ordinary humans. They are something else entirely. Then update the database and find her. I want this creature captured or killed before the council representative asks questions I cannot answer. Council Representative Sithara stood near the viewing screen, watching the chaos with cold eyes. She had come aboard for a routine inspection of the research vessel's findings. She had not expected to find herself in the middle of a crisis involving a supposedly extinct subspecies of human. Her report to the council would be extensive. "Shipmaster," she said, "perhaps we should consider the possibility that this enhanced human cannot be captured by conventional means." Vorath turned to face her. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we authorize lethal force. Whatever this creature is, she has already proven herself to be extremely dangerous. We cannot risk her escaping to warn others of her kind. If enhanced humans still exist somewhere in the galaxy, the Council will want to know about it. But they will want to know about it from us, not from her." Vorath hesitated. Killing a sentient being without proper authorization went against Volfari protocols. But Sithara was right. The risk was too great. If Lyra Voss reached a communication array and sent a message to her people, the consequences could be catastrophic. "Very well," he said. "All security teams are authorized to use lethal force. Kill the human on sight." Deep in the maintenance tunnels, Lyra heard every word. She was connected to the ship's internal communication system through a hacked access point. She had been listening to Vorath's orders since the hunt began. She knew how many teams were searching for her. She knew their patrol patterns. She knew their weaknesses. And now she knew they wanted her dead. Lyra closed her eyes and allowed the memories to surface. She had spent so long trying to forget. The faces of her comrades. The sound of explosions. The smell of burning cities. The screams of the dying. She remembered the day she had been enhanced, the needles piercing her spine, the fire spreading through her veins as her DNA was rewritten. She remembered the promise she had made to herself afterward. Never again. She had refused to be a weapon. She had fought against those who wanted to use enhanced humans as tools of destruction. And when the war had become too terrible to continue, she had chosen to sleep rather than fight. She had hoped that when she woke up, the world would be different. She had hoped that humanity would have learned from its mistakes. But some things never changed. Lyra opened her eyes and began to move. The communication array was located near the bridge in a heavily guarded section of the ship. Reaching it would require passing through multiple security checkpoints. She could kill everyone who stood in her way. Her enhanced body was designed for exactly that purpose. But killing was not who she wanted to be. It was never who she wanted to be. She would find another way. The first security team appeared in the corridor ahead of her. 4 guards, armed with energy rifles, moving in a standard patrol formation. Lyra waited until they passed, then slipped out of the shadows behind them. Her hand found a pressure point on the first guard's neck, and he dropped silently. The second guard turned at the sound, but Lyra was already there, her palm striking his chest and disrupting his heart rhythm just enough to render him unconscious. The third guard raised his weapon, but she grabbed the barrel and twisted it aside, the energy bulb scorching the wall beside her head. Her knee found his stomach, and he folded. The fourth guard tried to run, but she caught him before he could take 2 steps. 4 guards down in 6 seconds. None of them dead. Lyra continued toward the communication array. She passed through engineering, where she saw Melos working frantically on a damaged power conduit. He looked up as she moved through the shadows, and their eyes met for just a moment. Lyra put a finger to her lips. Malus nodded slowly and returned to his work, pretending he had seen nothing. The corridor ahead split into two paths. One led to the communication array. The other led to the crew quarters, where dozens of Velthari civilians were sheltering from the crisis. Lyra could hear them through the walls, their voices tight with fear and confusion. They did not understand what was happening. They only knew that something dangerous was loose on their ship. A child's voice reached her ears. A young Velthari, asking her parent why they had to stay in their room. Asking if the monster was going to hurt them, Lyra stopped walking. Monster. That was what they called her. That was what the database said she was. A killing machine. A weapon. A thing to be feared and destroyed. She had spent 400 years frozen in the cold darkness of space, dreaming of a world where she would not be seen as a monster. She had hoped that when she woke up, things would be different. But here she was, again. Running through corridors, evading guards, being hunted by people who had never even tried to understand her. The memories came flooding back. The last battle of the Enhancement Wars, the city burning around her, the screams of the dying, her own hands covered in blood, the faces of the people she had killed, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. Because the war had given her no choice. She remembered her commander, a man named Carter Brooks, standing with her on the rooftop as the city fell. He had been enhanced like her, but older, wiser, more damaged by the things he had seen and done. He had looked at the flames spreading below and said something she had never forgotten. "They made us into weapons," he had said. "But we get to decide what we fight for." Lyra had made her decision that night. She would not fight for the people who had created her. She would not fight against them either. She would simply stop fighting altogether. She would sleep and hope and wait for a better world. But sleep had not changed anything. The galaxy was still full of fear. People still saw enhanced humans as monsters. And now, 400 years later, she was being hunted again. "They made us into weapons," Lyra whispered to herself. "But we get to decide what we fight for." She turned away from the crew quarters and continued toward the communication array. The child's voice faded behind her, replaced by the hum of the ship's systems and the distant footsteps of patrol teams. She would not hurt the civilians. She would not prove them right about what she was. She would send her message and leave the ship. And the Velthari would have to live with the knowledge that the monster they had feared could have killed them all but chose not to. That was the lesson she would teach them. That was the lesson humanity had tried to teach the galaxy for centuries. Being dangerous did not mean being evil. Having power did not mean using it. And being seen as a monster did not make someone a monster. Lyra Voss was going to show the Velthari what enhanced humans really were, and they would never forget it. The Velthari research vessel drifted through the cold emptiness of space, its sensors scanning the darkness for anything worth studying. Senior researcher Kethis stood at the main viewing screen, his four eyes blinking slowly as he watched the data streams flow across the display. He had spent 40 years cataloging dead civilizations and forgotten relics. He had seen the ruins of empires that once spanned entire galaxies. Nothing surprised him anymore, but today would be different. "Senior researcher, we are detecting an unusual object at coordinate 749, said sub-researcher Yalith from his station. The younger Velthari's voice carried a note of excitement that Kethis found mildly irritating. "Define unusual," Kethis replied without turning around. "It appears to be a vessel, small, primitive design. The hull composition matches nothing in our database, but the decay patterns suggest it has been drifting for approximately 400 standard years." Kethis finally turned, his interest now genuine. 400 years placed this vessel in a fascinating period of galactic history. Many species had risen and fallen during that time. The Velthari had watched them all from a safe distance, recording their achievements and their failures with equal detachment. "Bring it aboard," Kethis ordered. Carefully. The recovery took several hours. The alien vessel was small, barely larger than a shuttle, and its hull was scorched and pitted from centuries of micro-impacts. When the Velthury technicians finally cut through the outer door, they found a single chamber inside. The walls were covered with strange symbols that none of them could read. Banks of equipment lined the sides, dark and silent. And in the center of the room, surrounded by a soft blue glow, sat a pod. Kethis approached the pod with the careful movements of a scientist who had learned to respect the unknown. Through the frosted glass, he could see a shape. A figure. A body. Life signs? He asked. Yalith checked his scanner twice before answering. Positive. Faint, but stable. Senior researcher, this being is alive. Impossible. Nothing survives 400 years of drift. The pod appears to be a preservation device of some kind. The technology is crude but effective. The occupant is in a state of suspended animation. Kethis leaned closer to the glass. The frost cleared slightly under the warmth of his breath, and he saw the face of the sleeping being. It was a female by the shape of her features. Her skin was pale, her hair dark and cut short. She looked almost peaceful, as if she were merely sleeping. "Do we know what species this is?" Kethis asked. Yalith consulted the ship's database. The physical characteristics match a species called humans. They are listed as a minor civilization, scattered across several systems in the outer rim. Population estimates suggest fewer than 8 billion individuals remaining. They are not considered significant. Not significant, Kethis repeated. He found that assessment comforting. A minor species meant minimal risk. What else does the database say? Very little. Humans are described as adaptable, but technologically inferior. They reached basic interstellar travel approximately 500 years ago, but never developed beyond that point. There are references to something called the Enhancement Wars, but the details are incomplete. Kethis waved his hand dismissively. Wars are common among primitive species. They fight over resources, territory, ideology. It means nothing. Should we report this finding to Shipmaster Vorath? Eventually. First, I want to study this specimen. The preservation technology alone could be valuable. And I am curious about these enhancement wars. Perhaps this human can tell us something interesting. Before we hand her over to the authorities, Yalith hesitated. Senior researcher, perhaps we should wait. We do not know what state she will be in when she awakens. 400 years is a long time. Her mind could be damaged. She could be dangerous. Kethis made a sound that among Velthury passed for laughter. Dangerous? Look at her, Yalith. She is small, fragile. Humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. Their senses are dull, and their reflexes are slow. What could she possibly do to us? I do not know. That is precisely what concerns me. But Kethis was no longer listening. He had already made his decision. The opportunity to study a living relic from a forgotten war was too valuable to pass up. He would be famous for this discovery. His name would be remembered long after he was gone. Begin the revival sequence, he ordered. Yalith wanted to argue, but he knew it would be pointless. Senior researcher Kethis had not listened to a word of caution in 40 years. He was not going to start now. So Yalith simply nodded and began entering commands into the pod's control panel. The blue glow around the pod intensified. Machines that had been silent for centuries hummed back to life. Frost began to melt from the glass, running down in thin streams that pooled on the floor. Inside the pod, the human's chest began to rise and fall with slow, shallow breaths. Kethis watched with growing excitement. This was the moment he lived for. The moment of discovery. The moment when the past revealed its secrets to those patient enough to seek them. The pod's lid hissed and began to open. The human's eyes moved beneath their lids. Her fingers twitched. A soft groan escaped her lips, and then her eyes opened. Kethis leaned forward, eager to make first contact with this primitive creature. He had prepared a greeting in his mind, simple words that even a basic intelligence could understand. He would be gentle. He would be patient. He would treat her with the same care he would give to any laboratory specimen. But something made him pause. The human's eyes were not the eyes of a confused survivor waking from a long sleep. They were sharp, alert, aware, and as they focused on Kethis, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Her irises glowed with a faint golden light. "Senior researcher," Yalith whispered, his voice tight with sudden fear. "Those readings I mentioned earlier, the ones about biological modifications, I think I may have underestimated their significance." The human sat up slowly. Her movements were smooth and controlled, showing no sign of the weakness that should have come from 4 centuries of sleep. She looked at the 2 Velthari standing before her, then at the room around her, then at her own hands. She flexed her fingers experimentally, as if testing whether they still worked. They did. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Kethis found his own voice with difficulty. "You are aboard the Velthari research vessel Seeker of Truths. I am Senior Researcher Kethis. We found your vessel drifting in space and brought you aboard for study. You have been asleep for 400 years. The human processed this information without visible reaction. 400 years, she repeated. "And you brought me aboard for study." "That is correct. We mean you no harm. We simply wish to learn about your species and your history." The human looked at Kethis with those glowing golden eyes, and for a moment, she almost seemed amused. "You want to learn about humans," she said. "Then let me teach you the first lesson." She stood up from the pod in one fluid motion, and Kethis realized with growing horror that everything his database had told him about humans was wrong. "My name is Lyra Voss," she said, "and you have made a terrible mistake." Lyra Voss stood in the center of the medical bay, surrounded by 6 Velthari guards who pointed weapons at her chest. She did not move. She did not need to. Her enhanced senses were already mapping the room, counting heartbeats, measuring distances, calculating angles. The guards thought they were in control of the situation. They were wrong. Senior Researcher Kethis stood behind the line of guards, trying to project an authority he no longer felt. "There is no need for alarm," he said. "We simply wish to examine you. Your biological modifications are fascinating. We have never seen anything like them." "I am not a specimen," Lyra replied. Her voice was flat and cold. "Of course not. But surely you understand our curiosity. You are a living artifact from a forgotten era. The things you could teach us about human enhancement technology are invaluable." Lyra looked at the guards, then at the restraints they were preparing to put on her wrists. She understood exactly what was happening. She understood exactly. She had seen it before, 400 years ago. Scientists who saw her as a puzzle to be solved. Military leaders who saw her as a weapon to be controlled. Politicians who saw her as a threat to be eliminated. None of them had ever seen her as a person. "I will not be restrained," she said. Kethis sighed. "I was hoping we could do this peacefully. Security Chief Drell, please secure the subject." Drell was a large Velthari with scars on his face that suggested a violent past. He stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. He grabbed Lyra's arm with one hand and reached for the restraints with the other. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Lyra twisted her arm free with a motion that should have been impossible. Her hand shot up and struck Drell on the throat, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to drop him. Before his body hit the floor, she was already moving. The first guard fired his weapon, but she was no longer where she had been standing. She appeared behind him, her elbow driving into the base of his skull. He collapsed. The remaining guards opened fire, filling the air with energy bolts that scorched the walls and shattered equipment. Lyra flowed through the chaos like water, her body bending and twisting in ways that defied normal human anatomy. Every movement was precise. Every strike was calculated. She did not waste a single motion dot in 8 seconds. All 6 guards were on the floor. None of them were dead. Lyra had been very careful about that. Kethis stared at the scene with his mouth hanging open. His entire understanding of the universe had just been shattered. The database said humans were slow. The database said humans were weak. The database said nothing about this. "What are you?" he whispered. Lyra looked at him with those glowing golden eyes. "I am what your wars created," she said. "I am what happens when humans decide that being human is not enough." She turned and walked toward the door. Kethis did not try to stop her. He could not have stopped her even if he wanted to. The alarms began to sound as Lyra moved through the corridors of the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, and automated announcements warned the crew of a security breach. Lyra ignored them. Her enhanced hearing could track the movement of every person on the vessel. Her enhanced vision could see through walls and detect heat signatures. Her enhanced brain could process all of this information simultaneously, while still leaving room for tactical planning. She was not trying to escape. Not yet. First, she needed information. A maintenance hatch appeared on her left, and Lyra pried it open with her bare hands. The metal groaned in protest but gave way under her strength. She slipped into the narrow tunnel beyond and began to crawl through the ship's infrastructure. The Valkyrie would expect her to run for the escape pods or the shuttle bay. They would not think to look in the places too small and too dark for their species to navigate comfortably. But Lyra was comfortable in small, dark places. She had spent years training in environments designed to break ordinary soldiers. She had learned to survive in conditions that would kill most humans in minutes. A maintenance tunnel was practically a luxury dot. She found a data access point after 20 minutes of crawling and connected to the ship's network, using skills she had learned in another lifetime. The Valkyrie security was sophisticated but not impenetrable. Within seconds, she was reading their files. What she learned made her heart ache. 400 years had passed. The enhancement wars were over. The factions that had fought to control enhanced humans like her had destroyed each other in the end. But the cost had been terrible. Billions of lives lost. Entire planets rendered uninhabitable. The human population had scattered across the galaxy, surviving in small colonies and refugee settlements. They were considered a minor species now, forgotten, irrelevant. Lyra closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of grief. Everyone she had ever known was dead. Every friend, every comrade, every person she had sworn to protect. They were all gone, turned to dust by the passage of centuries. But she was still here. And as long as she was here, she had a purpose. She continued reading. The Valkyrie were an old species, cautious and methodical. They studied dead civilizations and cataloged ancient artifacts. They considered themselves above the petty conflicts of younger races. But Lyra could see the arrogance beneath their detachment. They did not respect the beings they studied. They simply collected them, like specimens in a museum. A new file caught her attention. It was a report from Shipmaster Vareth to the Valkyrie Council, transmitted just minutes ago. The report described the awakening of an enhanced human and the subsequent security breach. It recommended immediate termination of the subject, before she could cause further damage. Termination. Such a clean word for murder. Lyra's jaw tightened. She had not survived 400 years of frozen sleep to be terminated by aliens who thought she was a specimen. She had not fought in the bloodiest war in human history to be dismissed as a security threat. She had not sacrificed everything she loved to be erased by people who would never even try to understand her. She was Lyra Voss. She was an enhanced human. And she was going to show the Veltari exactly what that meant. A sound reached her ears from further down the tunnel. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Lyra pressed herself against the wall and waited, her body perfectly still, her breathing silent. The footsteps grew closer. A young Veltari appeared around the corner, carrying a toolkit and muttering to himself about damaged power conduits. He saw Lyra and froze. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The young Veltari's eyes were wide with terror. He had obviously heard what she had done to the guards. He expected to die. Lyra looked at him carefully. He was young. He was afraid. And he was alone. "What is your name?" she asked quietly. The Veltari swallowed hard. "Melas," he managed to say. "I am Engineer Melas. Are you here to capture me, Melas?" "No. I am here to fix a power conduit." "I did not know you were here. Please do not kill me." Lyra studied his face. He was telling the truth. She could hear his heartbeat racing, could smell the fear chemicals flooding his system. He was no threat to her. He was just a young engineer who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. She stepped aside to let him pass. "Go fix your conduit," she said, "and tell no one you saw me." Melas stared at her in disbelief. "You are letting me go?" "Yes, but why?" "I thought enhanced humans were killing machines." "That is what the database says." Lyra almost smiled. "Your database is wrong about many things," she said. "Now go, before I change my mind." Melas ran. Lyra watched him disappear around the corner, his footsteps fading into the distance. Then she turned and continued deeper into the ship. She had a message to send. And when she was done, the Veltari would learn that waking her had been their greatest error.